Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Martin. I am a member of Sidebar here. For those of you who don't know what Sidebar is, we are a highly vetted leadership community built on the values of generosity, trust, and growth. We are on a mission to unleash the potential of everybody, our full potential of everybody. Our leadership program is designed to drive measurable results across a member's entire professional journey, with everything delivered through a custom built virtual platform that includes desktop and mobile. It is my pleasure as a member of Sidebar to also introduce a fellow member named Anshu, who is going to be presenting with us today. Anshu is a product leader and a super IC at Google who has spent over 22 years crafting experiences and products for different users. And when I say different users, the first thing he was doing, he was an author of children's books. So crafting products and experiences for children must have been quite the experience. Then you became a game designer for some of the world's largest social games like Mafia Wars and also Cafe World. And now, as a global product leader across consumer tech businesses, still in gaming, messaging, healthcare, education, media, and payments, you're continuing to build on what you've learned. You genuinely believe, or Anshu genuinely believes, that magic happens at the intersection of technology, storytelling, pop culture, and human behavior. And Anshu thrives on the insights that he's gathered and the experiences that he's built at these intersections. So, Anshu, if there's anything that you would like to add or embellish, please feel free and
I
let
think
us
thank you
know.
so much for that introduction and welcome everyone. We have less than an hour and we are going to cover a fairly complex topic. It sort of throws everyone a little off, especially if you're building your first AI products. How are you going to evaluate whether those products actually work or not? Uh, so let's jump in. Now, this is something that all of you must have seen happen in your companies. I'm guessing everyone here on the call is a product manager. Um, Either you or an engineer or a designer would have spent the weekend vibe coding a prototype, or would have spent 2 days vibe coding and then would come in incredibly excited into the office and say, hey, I built something, look at it. And everyone gets around the table, or they send around on the local Slack sort of group. They'll send out their vibe coded product. Everyone loves it. It is exciting. Everyone is like, hey, we would have taken 2 months to build this and ship this. This is amazing. This actually solves the problem that we've been trying to solve. And then everyone is like, hey, what would it take to ship this? All right. And the sad part is that some people would actually go ahead and try and ship this product, right? Or would actually be like, hey, let's launch it in beta and see what our users actually think of this. And the thing is, some of your users will be very excited. And it'll have some traction. But then you'd start seeing these failures creep up, and you'd start seeing that it doesn't necessarily work for every type of user. It doesn't respond in the way it's supposed to respond. And we've had some colossal sort of failures globally, whether it's Microsoft's Day or Meta's Galactica, and these are old examples. But the point is that the cost of failure is incredibly high. The example that I like to give is I work very closely with a few friends who started insurance AI chatbot business, right? So they're an insurance company. They said, hey, a big chunk of our work would be easier if we built a really powerful AI chatbot, which would tell people what kind of health insurance and what kind of life insurance they need. Now, me being me, I was sort of given, early access to this product, and I started tinkering around with it, and I started pushing it, saying, hey, what happens? But what kind of life insurance should I buy? What kind of health insurance should I buy? Now, the interesting thing is, if you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you keep asking, what's the right monetary outcome, the right financial outcome for my family? At some point, the bot essentially said, the best possible outcome for your family is if you die, they will get a really good life insurance. Now, technically, that answer might be correct. But if you're an insurance company, you'd never want your chatbot to say that the best possible outcome is for you to pass away. And then, your family gets the life insurance that they are owed. And this is the kind of thing that there is no way that a human chat, any insurance agent or any chatbot, any human chatbot would ever actually give this answer. right? So these are the kind of things which, if suppose now, if I was one of those users who would screenshot this and then put this up on Twitter or put this up on LinkedIn, that, hey, this insurance company's bot just told me that the best financial outcome for my family is if I die. There goes the company, right? The kind of risk, the reputational risk that comes with some of these things is just so high that businesses start and end at having built something which gives a half-baked answer, right? And this is what we are trying to sort of prevent, that how do you make sure that what you're doing is not giving these vibe check answers, and that even though the product might be quickly built, and yes, AI-driven development has cut short a lot of the development time, that do not ship products without actually evaluating them and making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So what is an evaluation? All of us went to school and we all, remember how we were evaluated. So think of yourself as the teacher. If you were teaching a course and there was a group of students and you wanted to know if they had actually learned something at the end of an entire term, an entire semester, what would you do? You would evaluate them. You would most likely give them a test. This could be, a verbal test. This could be a written test. This could be a multiple choice question, or this could be a very qualitative Q&A sort of a thing where you correct each and every answer given by them. And that is it. That is evaluation. So now, if you had an AI product and you were evaluating its outcome, then that is exactly what you're doing. You're testing it. You're building a set of questions to who, and these questions already have prefixed answers. You clearly know that the output is supposed to be deterministic. But even if the output is supposed to be qualitative in nature, you know what a good answer looks like and what a bad answer looks like, what a correct answer looks like and what an incorrect answer looks like. And that is it. That is what you're evaluating. Now, the critical part here is this talk is called AI Eval for product managers. And you might be thinking, hey, why am I, as a product manager on this product, the right person to run these evals? Why can't it be my engineering counterpart, or why can't it be my design counterpart, or why can't it be the QA team, right? And sure, those answers are all those different sort of cross-functional folks could actually take up the job of evaluating. And in fact, the idea is that the person closest to the product should evaluate. But if you really take a step back and you think about what this evaluation really requires, you would quickly come to the conclusion that PMs are actually the best suited for AI evaluation. And there are three broad reasons for that. One is that it is your job as the PM to sort of understand the user. Understanding what the users really require from any product that you're building, whether it's an AI-driven product or not, is immaterial, is your responsibility. And that actually plays a very big part in how you're going to evaluate the outcome. So user empathy is a big one. Second is the product context. You are the only one who understands, who's close enough to the problem statement and who understands the business risk and the product risk to know what catastrophic sounds like and what is acceptable, right? You're the only one who can very quickly say that, hey, if we are building an insurance product, giving an answer like the one that I got is catastrophic to the business, right? Telling the user to uninstall the app and reinstall the app, catastrophic, because if the user uninstalls the app, they're most likely not going to come back. And more importantly, you're the only one who bridges these requirements and bridges these needs across these different functions. So whether it's user needs, whether it's the business requirements, whether it's the technical specs, you are the only one who's actually across all of these. And which is why in this day and age, if you're building AI-driven products or your product development cycle is using a lot of generative AI, then you are the right person in the team to be responsible for AI evaluations. What we are going to do is I'm going to run you through a case study of a product that we would build. And then we'll sort of generalize it and see what would it take to build AI evals for it. As Kim mentioned, please feel free to ask questions in the chat and I'll try and answer them as we go along. Now, think of this as a personal project, right? And I'm very sure all of you would have tried your hand at doing something like this. So you open up your favorite, LLM-based chat. It could be, ChatGPT. It could be Gemini, hopefully, given that I work at Google. It could be any one of the things that you like. And you take your last 1 month statement, credit card statement, so the last 3 months credit card statement. You dump them in the chat and you say, hey, can you help me analyze my last 3 months of Bank of America statements and tell me what my spend pattern is? Tell me which are the areas where I spend the most, categorize it, subcategorize it, tell me a little bit about these monthly subscriptions that I've been paying. I want to have a good sense of do I even remember all the subscriptions that I have, right? And in one shot, as they say, it will actually do a fairly decent job of doing this. It'll tell you that, hey, it seems like last 3 months, there was December, you were definitely traveling with your family, so it looks like you spent a lot on travel. I see a big hotel booking. I see some flight bookings. It looks like you have some recurring payments. There is a gym membership, which I see the same amount every month. So this looks like a membership. Your Netflix monthly membership is being paid through this, and looks like you also have Disney Plus, and looks like you also have HBO Max, which used to be HBO Go and used to be HBO something else before. But the fact is that these are all these subscriptions that you've been paying. And you're like, hey, this is a good system. I've built something which gives me some insights. Oh, and it's also pointing out that I have this one particular monthly subscription to a SaaS product that I haven't actually used. I've been paying $8 per month for this, and I'd completely forgotten about this. I purchased this about 6 months back, but I've never really used it. Let me go and cancel this subscription. And then you think to yourself, wow, I have just saved myself $8 a month. That's about $96 a year. Now imagine if I built this as a product and gave it to other people, and essentially I would help people save a few $100s off extra credit card payments that they've been making, having forgotten what they've already subscribed to. That's a valuable product, and I'm sure people would pay me just outright $20 for this product. So this is a great side hustle, a great side project that I could put up, creditcardanalyzer.ai, where people go dump in their credit card statements, analyze them, and it helps them save money, right? So we started with the me problem. The me problem was essentially that I want to analyze my credit card statements for the last few months, right? And then you realize this seems to be valuable. It is able to pull some interesting insights into my spend patterns, and I'm sure other people would use these insights. Now, if you're like me, you would most likely rush to your spouse, your wife, your husband, and say, hey, I built this really cool thing. Can you give me your last 2-3 months credit card statements, and let's analyze that? Now, it turns out your wife has a Chase Manhattan account. And when she gives you the last 3 months of credit card statements and you run it through the same system that you've built, it doesn't actually give any good insights. In fact, it's not able to figure out the same spend categories. It seems to be saying that Amazon is a recurring bill, and it's not able to categorize groceries versus regular payments, because you realize, hey, my credit card statement is very different because it was a Bank of America statement, looks and feels very different from this other bank's bank statement. So now suddenly, when the problem goes from me to we, you've added a second user, you've realized that, I need to be able to handle data of different types. I now have a different type of credit card statement. And then you realize, your plans of credit card statement analyzer.ai are going to be difficult because there are going to be users from all over the world who are going to start dumping in their credit card statements. Some of them would be Excel sheets, and some of them would be PDFs, and some of them would actually be just images turned into PDFs. So OCR would have to be performed and it won't have text. And that's where things get really murky, because now you'll have to be able to extract all this information, turn it into structured data, and then run an analyzer on top of it, and then find the right outcomes. And this is where we end up with the third thing, which is you go from me, which is just solving for yourself, to we, solving for maybe one other user or a few other users, to the product problem, which is all of us, right? How do you generalize this and solve it? You have to ensure accuracy, you have to ensure privacy, you have to make sure that you continuously improve this product. And when somebody messages you saying, hey, it did not work on my Excel sheets, my CSV files, you're like, okay, now I'll have to add support for CSV files as well, and comma separated sheets, right? So this is the journey. Now, let's start off with the first pass, right? The initial problems that you'll see if you do this, you'd realize that there are things like on your credit card statement, if any of you have ever looked through them, you'd realize it's not very easy to figure out which merchant you're paying to. Amazon can be sometimes written as AMAZON, so the full spelling. So you look at it and you're like, ah, of course, this is Amazon. But then sometimes it's just AMZN. And then AMZN Marketplace is very different from just regular Amazon. And if you live like me in Singapore, you'd realize that certain things are sometimes shipped from Amazon.au, which is Amazon Australia, because that's where the warehouse is. So sometimes they ship things over from Australia, and your credit card statement actually shows .au, and you'd be scratching your head saying, when did I make a payment in Australia? Right? So is it shopping? Does Starbucks fall under food and drinks, or it fall under shopping? Right? So there are all these weird things that will happen. Equinox Fitness, is that a monthly subscription, or is that a one-time pass that you took to go take a particular class? So your categories could be very broad, your categories could be very small. And these are the kind of initial problems that you would hit, right? So the first thing that we walk away with is all of you who have been building products for a long time would know that we used to have very deterministic outcomes. So if we were evaluating any traditional product that we would have built, you would have very clearly said that A always leads to B. No matter what, A should always give B as an outcome. Whereas the moment you start looking at AI-based products, and you would have seen this even within your chat, within, in fact, that one single chat, sometimes it will do a good job of identifying Amazon, and at other times it would do a bad job of identifying Amazon. I'll give you a great example. On my credit card statement, there was an incredibly large sum of money given to a merchant called Singapore. And ChatGPT identified it as perhaps a tax payment or perhaps a large payment that I had made to the Singapore government. Now, what I had done is I'd taken the last 6 months of credit card statements and dumped them in. So I'd actually forgotten what this $3,500 bill was, right? And I'm thinking, where have I paid the Singapore government? Why is it identifying it as Singapore government? And it's only after digging in a little deeper, I realized, Singapore Airlines, which is my preferred mode of transportation, is being identified as Singapore government because everywhere else in my credit card statement, Singapore Airlines is written as its code, which is SQ. So SQ is what is written in most of my credit card statements, but on one or two payments, it just says Singapore. And that is why it is mischaracterized, right? So which means the output is not deterministic. Even if you tell it very clearly that, hey, if you spot the word Singapore, it's most likely a payment to Singapore Airlines. There are times where it will make mistakes. Now, this is the big challenge that you're trying to solve, that the output is not deterministic. The output is probabilistic. So you need the output to be very, very close to the right answer, especially in the cases where you want the answer to be deterministic, where the sun always rises in the east. There is no confusion about it. You never want your AI to say the sun rose in the west, right? Now, this is what leads us to the very first thing that all of you need. If you walk away today with any one single thing, walk away with the fact that if you're building an AI product, you need a golden set. Now, what is the golden set? The golden set is the set of questions and the set of answers that you have. It's a hyper-curated, human-curated set of questions that you will keep. That if you see the words AMZN, or if you see the words Amazon, if you see the words Amazon Marketplace, then the merchant should be Amazon. So this is an input and an output. If the input is of this form, then the output should always be this. And you're checking the output of your AI against this. Does it identify Amazon correctly, right? So this is a high quality representative living document. Now that living document bit is going to be very critical because you're going to keep adding new examples to this. You will keep telling it that, oh, Singapore Airlines sometimes is written as SQ and sometimes it's written as just Singapore, right? So whenever you see this, the answer should be this. So the golden set is a very clear question and answer. It's like your answer sheet. If you have ever done those MCQ questions back in the day and you had this transparent answer sheet on which the circles were already filled out, and you would put this on top of your answer sheet, and then you'd mark which ones are wrong and which ones are correct. That's exactly what the golden set is, right? So this is going to be your most important asset. It's going to be human curated, it's going to be very representative, and it's going to be high quality. So the first evaluation criteria that we would have is simple accuracy, right? We've asked our AI system to categorize, we've given it 10 transactions, and then you've said, hey, try and categorize these into the right category. Is this shopping? Is this food and beverages? Is this travel? Is this education, right? Are these regular subscriptions or a one-off payment? And if it identifies 7 out of 10 correctly, then that's basic math. Your accuracy is at 70%, right? Now, the question comes, is 70% good accuracy? Is 70% a good output for an AI product? Answers in chat. What do you think? For an AI product, is 70% a good accuracy? Is 90% a good accuracy? Excellent answer, Krishna. Like all things in life, it depends, right? The answer to anyone who's ever been in a relationship. What's the nature of your relationship right now? It depends. That's exactly true here with evaluations, right? Now, depending on the product. Now, if this was a healthcare product, or if this was an insurance product like we spoke about, we expect a very high degree of accuracy. We, in fact, want the accuracy in the upper 90s and nothing below. However, if imagine we built an app which allows you to take a selfie and then upload it and say that, hey, is this an Instagram hotspot? Which means, is this, so, you're traveling, you're in Tokyo, you want to take a picture, you're standing at the Akahabara Junction and you're saying, hey, I want to take a picture here. And then I want to see, is this the place where a lot of other people take their pictures? Now you'll have built a system which essentially says, oh, based on your location and based on what you've captured in your picture, yes, you are at a place where a lot of tourists take their pictures. It is an Instagram hotspot. A lot of people take their Instagram pictures here. And this system, say, had a 75% accuracy. The 3 out of 4 times it identifies a place correctly and is very clearly able to tell you that, yes, you have done a good job. In your checklist, you wanted to take 7 or 8 pictures on your trip to Japan. One with Mount Fuji, one at this particular junction, and you've done a good job that you've taken a picture at a location where most other people take pictures. Now that's decent accuracy because you might be satisfied with the fact that 3 out of 4 times it's able to give you a good answer because it's a far harder problem, right? So you might be okay with an accuracy of 3 by 4 or 75%, but if it came to your own personal health or if it came to insurance, then that might not be a good enough output. So the challenge of generalization, right? Now, simple accuracy based on a limited golden set is clearly revealing an oversight, right? Now, what happens, as I said, that once we started adding different types of formats, we started adding different types of PDFs, CSVs, images, documents with diverse layouts. If you live in my part of the world, you'll see that the dates are in the format DD, If you are in the US, your date format is MMDDYY. If you travel internationally, your credit card statement, which was always in US dollars, now is showing something like THB. What is THB? Oh, you traveled to Thailand and you made a bunch of payments in Thai baht. And those payments were actually made in the local currency. And then you paid a FX fee on top of it. So now your credit card statement not only has one currency, it actually starts showing multiple currencies, which you have to all convert to US dollars. The biggest problem, as you would start looking at this, is when you dump a large credit card statement and say you had one of those months where you had 75 payments or 100 payments in one month, did you actually tell the analyzer to count every single transaction? And you'd be like, isn't that obvious? But to be truly honest, AI systems don't necessarily work like that. And maybe it has just done a quick pass over it and said, there are about 50 odd transactions there, and this is the classification. So you have actually not explicitly told it that you wanted it to cover every single transaction in the statement. Did you do a quick sum check, which is the sum of all these transactions should be equal to the amount that you have to pay at the end of the month, minus what you've already paid for the previous month statement. One of the weirdest things that you would start seeing is that it doesn't know plus versus minus. And it might actually be showing you your previous month's payment as a new transaction that you've done. So you have these different formats, you have merchant variations, your user needs are very different, right? People want to distinguish between their personal expenses and their business expenses. They want a very different taxonomy as far as categorization is concerned. And then there are these weird edge cases. They're very complex scenarios where you made a payment in January, but in February it was refunded back to you. So now it's showing as a refund in the next month. So should that be counted as a valid transaction, right? So the challenge of generalization is where a lot of these things fail. So accuracy alone is not going to help us. So what do we move to? We now have to expand beyond accuracy. So accuracy was a simple measure. I gave it 10 transactions to classify. Was it able to classify them correctly? But what about robustness? Is it able to classify across different formats? So a way to think about robustness is its accuracy across different format types. So maybe it's weighted accuracy in that sense, right? And then is it consistent? Does it always give the same answer to the same question, right? So you want a system which is not only has high accuracy, but it also has robustness and consistency, right? So this is one of the first sort of big pitfalls to look out for. A lot of PMs, when they start building AI products for the very first time, get fixated on accuracy. It is an incredibly important measure. But what you want is accuracy, which goes along with robustness and consistency. And again, it depends on the type of product. But in general, these are the three things which go very well together and should be looked at together. Now, you say, actually, the real value of a credit card analyzer is the qualitative stuff. Are you able to tell me if I'm spending too much in a particular category? Are you able to figure out certain insights based on my spend patterns? Are you able to tell me that there are certain months where my payments are much higher than other months? Are you able to tell me that there are these extra payments that I've been making and I might not be actually using them? Can you identify places where I have made the same payment multiple times in the same month? So I might have been charged twice for the same transaction. That same $204.81 were charged within a few seconds of each other. And maybe I've been charged twice and I need to get a refund on one of them, right? So these are the kind of qualitative evaluations that you want, right? What are the insights that this credit card analyzer is giving? So far we've spoken about very quantitative things where A always led to B, and we could use measures like accuracy, and we could use measures like robustness and consistency, and we could build a golden set. But how do you do qualitative evaluation? All right. So this is where actually LLM as a judge, there's this whole concept of LLM as a judge, which is how do you use generative AI to actually do qualitative checks on the output? So you've built an AI system, your first ChatGPT system, which is taking your credit card statements and then giving you these qualitative analysis and evaluations of that. It's essentially telling you where you're spending more and where you're spending less. Now, this output you can actually put in as an input into another system, which is like a quality check. So this is if you in school, again, going back to our example of taking an exam, right? When you had these big descriptive questions, you would essentially now give it examples of, hey, this is the context. This is your role. You're an evaluator of credit card statements, right? You're a judge. You're an experienced financial analyst, right? Or you're a wealth expert, and you're going to look at somebody's qualitative credit card statement outputs, and you're going to tell it whether the quality is great or not. And you're going to define a rubric. You're going to say, what does a 5-on-5 answer look like? And what does a 4-on-5 answer look like? Or what does a 3-on-5 answer look like? You could also keep it simple. Likert scales or sort of these graded scales of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 don't necessarily work. You could just keep it binary and say, this is good qualitative output. This is bad qualitative outcome. So you could have it as a very binary answer, good versus bad. And you keep a very high threshold for what good looks like. So you give it very clear examples of, hey, these are the ways in which you can, this statement makes sense. This statement doesn't give me enough qualitative inputs, right? So it has to be scalable, it has to be qualitative, it has to be explainable, and it has to be flexible, right? So you do all of this, and you are essentially creating a qualitative evaluation framework. So you're turning another LLM, another language model into your judge. So it looks through the outputs, and then it is able to give it a score. It is able to either say this is good, this is bad, or it's able to give it a score out of 5 and say this is 4.5 on 5 or this is 3 on 5. And now based on that, you know if your original system is actually doing a good job. So now you suddenly have quantitative measures like accuracy and robustness, but you also have qualitative measures. And again, in the first pass, you will build this qualitative framework yourself manually. But now you can't sit and analyze every single statement. In fact, you would realize that your own last 12 months of credit card statements are very difficult to analyze manually because you could have a couple of thousand transactions in over a year. And which is why you would very quickly need to build these automated systems, both for the quantitative side and qualitative side.
Just a pause.
So now,
Excuse me, Anshu.
so take
Just
a
a
quick
pause.
pause here.
Yes, I know that Adrian had asked a question based upon the previous slide, but I didn't want to interrupt you. How to know where it's failing? Do you need evals at each step, such as prompt understanding, retrieval, synthesis, final output? Would a feedback loop be part of this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So even in the me example, which is the very first time you dumped in a single credit card statement and asked it to analyze it, it would have given you an output and you would have said, no, that's not what I want. You are coupling in food and beverages into shopping, right? All my Starbucks spend and when I eat out should actually be categorized separately. So now you've gone and actually changed your system prompt. You have very clearly said that you want very granular classification. At some point, you would just get a little fed up with it and say, no, come up with 8 different categories of transactions. And under each category, come up with at least 3 subcategories. Give me a table of your categories and subcategories. And once you're happy with this, you would say, oh, okay, this is your classification system now. Go back and reclassify all my transactions using this system. So at every step, you're refining your system prompt. At the end of this whole chart, you can say, now, give me the sum total of all my charts with you and create one single system prompt, which I can then turn into a GPT, which is my credit card analyzer, right? So at the end of a couple of hours of going back and forth, you would create one system prompt. Now, this is your system prompt v.1, right? And you would keep improving the system prompt. So you're absolutely right. This is about prompt understanding. This is about retrieval. You could ask a system to first say, you know what? Anytime a new credit card statement is put into you, don't start classifying it. Don't start categorizing it. First, I want you to extract all the data out of it. And this is the JSON format in which, or this is sort of the markdown format in which we are going to extract all data. Doesn't matter what kind of credit card statement it is. And this takes us back to very classical product management. This is how you, in the days before AI would have solved this problem. If you and I were building a company which analyzes credit card statements using, old-fashioned AI, machine learning, this is what we do. We'd first get output in a very structured format and say every PDF, every CSV, every Excel sheet has to be converted into this fixed format where there is a date, there is a merchant, there is an amount, there is a currency, right? And we turn every statement into this, and then we analyze. All right. So this is what you would do. And you in an AI system, some of these things, the good thing is AI is becoming each generation is becoming much smarter. There's so much pre-training which goes into these that a lot of these things, it just has a much better understanding of doing some of these problems. Even if we were talking about this exact problem statement 6 months back to doing it now on the latest models, you'll realize that your system prompt doesn't have to be overly complex, and yet it has to be very structured. And you would only arrive at that structure after you solve the me problem, then get to the we problem. And then as you start thinking about it as a product, you would have done this. So yes, there is a feedback loop at every step of the way. It's just that the feedback loop keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you keep adding quantitative measures and qualitative measures. You start coming up with your golden set. You start coming up with ways of looking at how you will qualitatively analyze the output. Okay, so now imagine that we have done 3 passes at this, right? So we built a version 1, we built a version 1.1, a 1.2, and a 1.3. right? And what we have been measuring is our accuracy and robustness. So, you see this graph of like, hey, my accuracy is going up and my robustness is also going up, which is my accuracy across different types of input channels is becoming better. So, version 1 was better merchant matching, and CSV support significantly boosted accuracy. And then 1.2 were major improvements across all metrics to a substantial jump in performance. And then we did some incremental improvements. And then there is the user-centric metric, which is users gave you a happiness rating, a customer satisfaction rating of like, after reading my credit card analysis, did this give you enough insights? And the users were like, it started off as 2.5 on 5, and that has slowly moved up to 4.1, 4.2. And that is sort of the Likert score of your, helpfulness rating, which again could be a qualitative output, but you could also test it with real users and start sort of figuring out that my first 100 users, these were the outputs they gave me. So I tested it on 10 users, then I reran and improved it, gave it to the same 10 users, and did their scores improve over time of whether they found the analysis to be helpful, right? So this is how you then automate the system. You're essentially saying, I have my standard qualitative checks, I have my standard quantitative checks. I am making my golden set more and more robust for running my quantitative analysis. I now have 3 measures. I'm measuring accuracy, I'm measuring robustness, I'm also measuring consistency, and then I'm measuring helpfulness as a qualitative output. This is the key part. As you get into the product problem, you'd realize that what you need is continuous evaluation. Now, this is for all of you, again, who have built conventional products, you know this. You need regression testing, right? Every time you release a new version, you have to make sure that things which used to work in the past continue to work in the future as well. And some of these things you would realize that, say, you moved from Gemini 2.5 to Gemini 3. Now, suddenly the model is far more powerful. It does a lot of things one shot. And in fact, your previous system prompt is leading to degraded answers. So you now need to go back in. So because your underlying model has become far more powerful, you have to go back and change your system prompts. And these are the kind of things where you'll have to figure out that, am I able to do regression detection? Well, my golden set should still give the same output, even if it doesn't improve. Ideally, all your scores should improve, but you'd be surprised that when you actually upgrade your system, sometimes your answers actually become worse. So you have to go back and change your system prompts and make sure that this is, you're getting the right kind of outputs. So there is a need for continuous evaluation. In fact, every time you make any change to the system, you want to run everything through it. But on a daily basis, you need these dipstick checks of, what are my users saying, right? What is my output looking like? What does my quantitative output look like and qualitative output look like? So you would always need a human in the loop while you have these fixed automated systems, because quantitative stuff is easy to automate because that's just a script. These are the questions, these are the answers, just match the input to the output. But qualitative stuff would require you to build an LLM as a judge, right? And you might want to then at some point go deeper and do A/B testing, right? Build 2 very different system prompts, take half the users through one type of prompt and the other half through another type of prompt, right? But the thing that I would like all of you to watch out for as you go deeper into this is, don't get too obsessed about specific tools or platforms or even specific metrics. I think somebody's asked this question. The metric or how you measure the output of your AI depends on your product. And I'm going to take you to there are a bunch of different metrics that broadly everyone can use, but not all metrics are made equal. If you were building a healthcare chatbot and an insurance chatbot versus a financial chatbot, the amount of accuracy and what you would need the system to do would be very different, right? Okay, so let's again sort of go back to what this 4-step framework is. You start off as a user and you define what good output looks like. So you establish success criteria from the user's perspective, and you're able to say that if the output looks something like this, then this is good. This is quantitatively good and qualitatively. Based on that, you build your golden set for quantitative, right? And this allows you to measure things like accuracy and robustness and consistency. right? And you keep adding to this. And you'd realize very soon that even for a simplistic product, you would need 50 to 100 items on this golden set to actually do justice. For larger systems and more complicated products, your golden set can actually become much bigger. You never usually remove things from the golden set. You usually just append to the golden set. As your product becomes more and more complex, what you're doing is adding more examples to the golden set, right? And then you're using your evaluation type, right? You're selecting which evaluation method is the right one. Should every output go through a human? So for example, if we were building cancer detection, or if we were, in the healthcare category, you actually might start off with every output goes through a human and the human validates the output that the LLM has given, right? In high stakes scenario. But then you could have code-based metrics, which is very quantitative, just running a Python script, which is sort of going through the output and just giving it a grade, right? And then, of course, you have LLM as a judge, which is for qualitative feedback at scale. Again, don't fall for the trap of always giving a graded system, because when you give it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or least helpful to most helpful kind of scales, you'd realize that as time goes by, what used to be considered helpful or what used to be considered 4 on 5 over time becomes a 3 on 5 and then becomes a 2 on 5. So sometimes keeping a very binary output like this is good, this is not good is easy, because you can actually change the definition of what good is and make it a higher bar as your product becomes superior. And then, of course, you automate this whole thing and then you iterate on this. So a couple of other things. We've spoken about accuracy. We've spoken about consistency. You also perhaps want completeness, which is sort of another word for robustness. But safety. You could have very high accuracy, but 1 out of 1,000 times your system gives the kind of answer that we spoke about right at the beginning, which is, hey, if you pass away, that's a great outcome for your family. So then you create a separate system saying there are these incredibly potentially harmful answers that we should never give. So we need to run a system check that anytime such words are mentioned, remove those as outputs. Never give an output which is along these lines. A classic example when people create chatbots, support chatbots for their products, is a lot of chatbots would tell people, plug it out, plug it back in, which is delete your app and install the app again, right? And that might be an accurate answer for certain products, but for all of you who know this, that's probably the single biggest reason for churn. If your user uninstalls your app, the chances that they're going to install it back again are very low. Maybe that's not the type of answer you want to give. Relevance is another one. Is the answer relevant? You're talking about insurance, but what if your chatbot and you ask the chatbot, hey, if a different political party or if a different candidate became the president of the US, would my health insurance rates change? Why should your chatbot even answer this question? Why land yourself and your company in trouble, right? So is it relevant? And so you'll have to start thinking about what kind of questions are actually relevant and what kind of answers you don't want to give, right?
Before we move on, I see Margaret has a question. Margaret, do you want to ask your question real quick? And then Greg, he's got a favorite question as well.
Margaret, I see your question, and you're absolutely right. So when ChatGPT and Claude are actually running that, right? So they give you two side-by-side outputs. If any of you have, there are actually a bunch of companies which allow you to give the same prompt and run it across 3 or 4 different LLMs and compare the responses of each, right? And this is how anytime a new model comes out, they would say that, hey, we measured it against this test, the most difficult test on earth, or we measured it against, the International Math Olympiad and the International Physics Olympiad. They are essentially evaluating their system and saying, we performed at this level, all right? And when they're asking the user to give a thumbs up, thumbs down, which output did you prefer? They are essentially running an eval right there. And then you notice some of these systems actually ask you to type out why you preferred one output over the other. Right? Hey, I preferred the language here. This was more concise, or this was more descriptive, and I like the fact that it was more descriptive. And a lot of calls in terms of how the output of LLM changes over time is dependent on this collective feedback from users, right? So if users prefer different levels, yes. For creative responses, again, over time, you would have noticed that certain models, People used to like the older models because they used to sound a little bit more playful and used to give funny and descriptive answers. But then a lot of users, while preferred this kind of output, a lot of users were like, hey, just give me the answer, give me a concise, clear answer, be more professional in your outcome. And you would have seen that some of the newer models seem to have lost a little bit of their personality and are now giving more, just crisp answers, apologizing a lot more and saying, oh, I'm sorry, this is what you expected, and this is your clear answer, right? And all of that is a result of running these large-scale evaluations and getting inputs from people, right? Which metric to use is what this slide is covering, right? And again, there is no one one-stop shop for these. There's no one size fits all based on the type of products. And you can easily go online and check that, hey, if I'm building a chatbot for healthcare, what are the kind of things that I should be measuring? What is the way in which I should measure? Am I measuring factuality? Am I measuring completeness? Don't worry about this. Some of these slides are very dense. After this call is over, we'll try and email out a chat sheet and a cheat sheet, which I'll have a link here as well, which actually gives you all of this data in one simple PDF, one simple website, so you can go through all of this. These are a couple of the sins that you should watch out for. Don't just trust vibes. You have to move over and graduate to structured evaluations. You have to define your process first. Don't worry too much about which tool you're going to use, but first figure out the process, figure out what success looks like, figure out what you're going to measure. Don't use off-the-shelf metrics blindly. It's a really dangerous path to go down on. Do not ignore the end-to-end user experience. And this again goes back to why you as the PM are probably the best person to run evaluations. A lot of people only look at things like accuracy and quantitative outputs, which lead to really bad outcomes because users might be expecting helpfulness, which is a very qualitative measure. Do not outsource your core knowledge. Now, there are some very specific products. So if you're building a healthcare product and you might not be a healthcare expert as the PM, then you go and partner with the right kind of subject matter experts and along with them build these evaluation frameworks, but you would still need to be involved because you're the one who cares about the user empathy side and the business need side, right? And don't set it and forget it. This is the other mistake that people make. Their engineers keep making fixes. The system prompts keep getting fixed. Better and newer models keep getting plugged in. And then older stuff keeps breaking. And you realize that your system, instead of becoming better, has actually degraded over time. So don't set it and forget it. This is a continuous process, and it is a very arduous process. So while your overall development time might have reduced quite drastically because of AI development, there is a lot more effort now needed in running evaluations and making sure that your systems run fine. Okay, homework for all of you, since we've been talking about exams and we've been talking about school. The thing to do today is actually go back, and if you are working as part of a team which is building their first sort of AI-powered product, go and see if you have a golden set. Go and see if your team has already come up with a set of a method or a set of ways in which they're going to evaluate. And if you don't have a golden set, then start building one, right? Start tinkering with your system. Just go and play with your system and say, if this is the input, then what should be the output? And let me actually create my golden set and start coming up with what these outputs look like. Okay. For those of you who want, you can scan this QR code. This has the cheat sheet for everything that we have covered today, and we'll try and email it out to all of you as well. So don't have to worry about if you can't take a screenshot right now or if you can't scan this QR code. And I think that's about it. I'm happy to answer a few questions. Quick thing that I wanted to talk about, I've been teaching on Maven. Maven is a platform which hosts a lot of courses. I used to be back in 2022, I was one of the earliest people to run a course on Maven, a product course on Maven. And now, of course, there are a lot of product courses there. My new course is Level Up to Product Super IC with AI. This is a course specifically targeted at senior product managers, product leaders, product executives who are struggling in that sort of space where there is the whole efficiency pull of like, hey, we need smaller teams giving much bigger output. And there's also, there is this flattening of the orgs which is happening. And for a lot of us who just genuinely like building products, but got caught up in managing other people, there's a great time to actually move back to being an individual contributor. That's something that I've done over the last few years. I've actually gone from being a manager of managers to very consciously moving towards being an individual contributor. So this course is very focused on that, about how do we learn, how do you sort of get your head around all that AI is doing, and sort of adapt and adopt these new AI technologies, and then, of course, build your own personal agentic OS. Yes, and I'm done, and I'm happy to answer questions. Kim, over to you.
For the questions that are being asked, the link for the QR code for the cheat sheet will be shared in a follow-up email I'll be sending out. In addition to that, this session has been recorded for replay, which is generally available on the Sidebar YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Last but not least, we do value feedback. Again, we are on the, if you don't mind, Anshu, going back to that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm still
Yes.
sharing.
No worries. This is the QR code. So again, we are growth-minded, a lifetime learner. We value your feedback. Please feel free to scan the QR code. I am also in the chat, including the link for this survey. So if you could please just take a few minutes and go ahead and scan that QR code and then provide feedback either via the link for the survey, that'd be great. And Anshu, if you want to go ahead and get that link for the cheat sheet and share it in the chat now.
Yes, I was just going to pull the link to the cheat sheet and share it with all of you. Sorry, let me stop sharing.
And then Anshu, we've got one question. Greg did ask it, and it was also favored. So I'll ask it in just a second once you share that.
No, please go ahead and ask the question while I'm pulling up this link and sending it to all of you.
And for the question whether or not the YouTube channel is open to all, yes, it is open to all.
That's the link to the cheat sheet. I've just put it in the chat.
Love it. Thank you so much, Anshu. So Greg had that question. Can you address the creation of the golden set and whether it can be automated? Can one build models to keep the golden set fresh, like evaluate new critical paths, etc.?
The answer is a mix. It's yes and no. I would actually say that you ideally want the golden set to be a very manually curated thing. That's in fact one of the things I mentioned as well. And the reason you want it to be manually curated is because you actually want to always have a very clear sense of what you're measuring and what is going on in your golden set. However, you can build smart enough LLM as a judge systems, which actually you can build an evaluator. So one is that you're just building a tester. So LLM as a judge is just saying this output score is 3.5 on 5 or it's 4 on 5. But then you can build an analyzer on top of it which says, oh, this is what would make it a 5 on 5. And then it actually says that if the description was done in this particular way, then it's a 5 on 5. And if you agree with it, then this becomes part of your golden set, right? So over time, right, both ideally golden sets are for quantitative stuff. But as you start saying that, hey, your system starts pointing out that on the accuracy metric, this is a common mistake that's being made. This is always inconsistent. And now it is bucketing all these inconsistencies. So after it has gone through thousands and thousands of evaluations, right? Thousands and thousands of quantitative evaluations, it's giving you patterns. It's telling you that the system always confuses AMZN and Amazon. And now you know that that needs to go in as part of your golden set. You know that eBay entries are not correctly recorded. You realize that it is not able to identify a particular kind of merchant or a particular kind of subscription as a subscription. And then you add that to the golden set and you clearly call out that, hey, this is equal to this, right? So yes, you can build a system which not only evaluates, but also finds out the gaps in your golden set. And then you append that to the golden set. But ideally, what I do is I still would like to be the human in the loop. So even if the system is giving me like, hey, you should add these 5 things to the golden set, I verify them first and then add them to the golden set. I hope that makes sense.
Anshu, thank you so much and forgive me. It seems that the link you provided for the cheat sheet is not
Ah,
accessible.
ah,
Yeah.
ah, my bad, my bad. Sorry, I actually provided the wrong link. Here you go, folks.
Oh, right. Looks like we've got the right link now. Thank you so much, Anshu. It seems like
Classic
we've got
mistake.
some questions that are still coming up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Anshu, if there's additional questions, do you want to ask people to stay on the call to help answer that, or do you want to provide contact information? What's your preference?
Uh, my email address is the easiest to remember. It's just my first name at gmail.com, typing it out here, Anshumani at Gmail. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions that I'm not able to answer right now, but I'm happy to stay on for another 5-10 minutes and answer questions. I
Okay.
am actually taking another lesson after this. So in about half an hour, I have another class to teach. So I would have to jump off after 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm happy to answer questions till then.
Wonderful. It looks like, how do you decide that the golden data set has reached a healthy level? Is a question.
How do you decide? The rough rule of thumb is that for most systems, your golden data set needs to have about 50 odd examples. So 50 odd input and output pairs to start off with. You essentially want to, the way to think about this is follow the 80-20 rule. So your golden data set should actually cover uh, at least all the examples which make up for 80% of all transaction types. So in our credit card statement analyzer, right, the most common kind of transactions that you would find across credit card statements should definitely be covered by the golden data set. So that's your rule of thumb. So based on that, add as many examples, right? Now, if it is for our insurance chatbot, if there are specific types of questions which are the most asked questions. So suppose you were already running a manual system, and now you can actually query and say, which are the top 5 questions which are always asked, which make up for the biggest chunk of answers. Or you reverse it and you say, uh, this is my total volume of chats. Which are the questions which are asked in 80% of the chats? And then it gives you actually, these are the 16 or 17 questions which are the most asked, or the 10 questions which are the most asked. And of course, there are hundreds of distinct questions which are asked, but that's the long tail. This is sort of the head and the torso. And that then allows you to create a golden set out of it.
Awesome. Kelly did ask an earlier question. I see she's still on, or Kelly is still on. Do you have any recommended tools such as link views?
There are a whole bunch of really phenomenal platforms now which allow you to build these systems end to end. So, which will allow you to figure out which quantitative measures you're going to use, instrument them, which qualitative measures you'll use, create LLMs as a judge. There are a bunch of them. But again, as I said, don't a simple Google search would actually land you on 5, 10 top tools. And then you can actually be very prescriptive and say, for this kind of a product, right? That for if you're building a chatbot, then you can say specifically for chatbots. If you're building, you want product analytics and you want it to be along with your, current amplitude implementation or your post hog implementation, then there are ways of doing it. So there are a whole bunch of out there, platforms out there which do this really, really well. But again, find the product which matches your needs. And for that, you have to figure out your needs first.
It's kind of GTBD for ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
And then
There are,
Sanam, oh, go ahead.
sorry. No, I just quickly looked at a question which sort of is connected on public benchmarks. And yes, there are benchmarks available. So type of tools which are very common or types of products which are very common. What has happened is that there are these, just like for the large LLMs, there are these standardized tests. For a lot of products now, there are standardized testing systems or a standard test that says, hey, this product should be at this particular benchmark. So there are these common public benchmarks which have started becoming available across domains. And there are companies who are actually creating these common frameworks across different types of orgs and different kinds of products. So yes, there are a bunch of them.
Great. And then Sanam had also asked a question earlier. How do you define what's a good answer?
Ah, this is where this is where again there's a lot of taste which would go into that, and there's a lot of helpfulness which would go into that, right? Is it valuable? Is it helpful? Did it actually give you an insight which you didn't have, or did it give you a very generic answer? Uh, I actually usually, as I said, I don't like Likert scales, which is, the least helpful to most helpful kind of answers, because it's very difficult to grade something a 4 on 5 or a 3 on 5, and keep that measure consistent. Because as I said, over time, you'd realize a lot of things which used to be 4 on 5 start feeling like 3 on 5, because the threshold of what is good has gone up. Which is why I always maintain a great, not great kind of a system is probably, you look at it and you're like, is this helpful? Yeah, it's a little bit helpful, but is it really helpful? No. And see, that chat right there is just you as a PM and you as your engineer are just sitting and looking at output and going, nah, I won't have found it useful. And that's it. This is you as a PM using your user empathy and having and building your understanding of this of what your users would expect from you, and then just giving these answers, right? That this is helpful, this is not helpful. And that helps, right? Because you would eliminate a lot of bad answers. Sure, you will have false positives and false negatives, but that's completely fine as long as you stay consistent with your definition of good and, in fact, keep improving it, keep increasing the threshold, you would get great outcomes.
And then we've got just the last question because I'm conscious of you, Anshu, needing to get on to your next class. We have a liked question. Have you seen a difference in creating AI evals for B2B or enterprise products versus consumer ones?
Yes, there are big differences, and specifically the biggest difference is uh, your requirement for accuracy and your requirement for giving very crisp answers is much higher with enterprise and B2B customers, because the pool of questions, right, that we spoke about is actually very limited. And you would most likely build sort of a RAG kind of a system, a retrieval augmented system for them, uh, because the answer pool cannot be out of a very large set. The answer pool is actually out of a very small set. So when consumers ask you questions, surprisingly, they can ask you all types of questions, right? Uh, from our credit card analyzer, if we were to build something for enterprise, and the enterprise would say, actually, our outputs are only out of this small set of things. So you can't actually give us an answer outside of this. So your systems are a lot more deterministic. Again, of course, I say this with all the caveats that it depends on the kind of product, but your metrics might be what you measure qualitatively and quantitatively might be very different for B2B and enterprise products as opposed to consumer products.
All right, Anshu, we are 5 minutes past. I think that there are some questions we did not ask. So I encourage anybody who has that question. Anshu was kind enough to provide his email address. And again, Anshu, thank you so much. Your topic has elevated, I think, all of our understanding and has provoked a lot of questions and some insights for us. So thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Again, this was a sidebar session. If you have any questions, please feel free to engage us as well with any questions. You can do that at Sidebar's website. And thank you all for hanging on for another 5-6 minutes. It seems like there's quite a few people who were really interested. So Anshu, thank you. You've had a very popular topic today or tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for staying late, and thanks, Kim, for hosting.
Thanks, Anshu. Bye.